Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Prapin, and I have the honor of welcoming you all to the second International Conference of the NIDA Law for Development 2017. I will serve as the MC for the first session of the conference today. We are now ready to kick off our symposium on sustainability, a global challenge and opportunity from legal and interdisciplinary perspectives. We will start with some formalities, beginning with a welcome message and then an opening address before engaging in our deliberations. So, may I now invite Associate Professor Nared Kesapakon, Dean of the Graduate School of Law of National Institute of Development Administration, to give his welcome message, please.
Good morning, Professor Dr. Kampon Panya Gomet, NIDA Vice President for Research and Consulting Service. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to extend to you all a very warm welcome. On behalf of the NIDA Graduate School of Law, I would like to express my gratitude to our distinguished speaker and presenters who have accepted our invitation to participate in this second international conference of the NIDA Law for Development. And most importantly, I would like to give my sincere thanks to you all for supporting our conference. This conference will offer a great opportunity to build crucial academic network among scholars and legal professions by presenting the idea and research on the implication of legal and interdisciplinary perspectives for promoting sustainability in Thailand and other nations. This ultimate objective is the primary theme of the conference this year, as you know, sustainability, a global challenge and opportunity from legal and interdisciplinary perspective. The conference demonstrates the philosophy of the law school, rules of law, and wisdom for development. We have received many abstracts from presenters coming from 7 countries, around Asia, Cambodia, China, India, Indonesia, Nepal, Pakistan, and Thailand. They cover a wide range of very interesting topics, including from environmental sustainability, economic sustainability and innovation, equality and human rights, public sector development, and governance. This shows that law can fruitfully blend in with other disciplines. This is a great opportunity for all of us. We wish you enjoy the conference and make the most of it in terms of productive deliberations until the very end. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you very much, Professor Nared. Next, may I invite Professor Dr. Kampon Panya Gomet, Vice President for Research and Consulting Services of National Institute of Development Administration, to deliver the opening address, please.
So, good morning, Dean of Graduate School of Law, Professor and participants. It is my great pleasure to be here today at the opening ceremony of the second International Conference of NIDA Law for Development 2017, organized by the Graduate School of Law, National Institute of Development Administration. I would like to thank the School of Law for organizing this conference, which provides an opportunity for local and overseas experts and researchers to share their thoughts and insights for the betterment of the global challenge and opportunities and implement sustainable development. May I also extend my warmest welcome to participants from all corners of the world. As we have known that the world is currently faced with challenges in all three dimensions of sustainable development: economic, social, and environmental. Unsustainable consumption and production patterns have resulted in huge economic and social costs and may endanger life of the planet. Achieving sustainable development will require global actions to deliver on the legitimate aspiration towards further economic and social progress, requiring growth and employment, and at the same time strengthening environmental protection. Over the past years, the global challenges to sustainable development have been driven by a broad set of major movements such as changing demographic profiles, changing economic and social dynamics, advancement in technology, and important shifts toward environmental deterioration. A better understanding of the linkage among these movements and the associated changes in economic, social, and environmental conditions is contemporarily needed. The Conference of Sustainability, a global challenge and opportunity from the legal and interdisciplinary perspectives, in particular, enhance academic, interdisciplinary, and coordinating major initiatives for the megatrends of global challenge and opportunity to the realm of sustainable development. These initiatives include the collaboration of research finding to strengthen our potential to advance our knowledge and enhance our understanding of the key role of sustainable development in contributing social protection mechanisms from all over the world. And finally, I would like to close my speech by wishing the conference very success. I hope that every one of you will have fruitful and meaningful exchanges in this conference. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณมากครับ
Thank you very much, Professor Kampon. ขอบคุณค่ะ Next, now we come to the real substance of our symposium, which, as you will shortly see, cover a wide range of issues and themes. Our paper presenters also come from many countries. The morning session features a keynote address, and a panel discussion. We now start with the keynote. We are privileged to have here with us one of Thailand's highly respected and distinguished scholars, Associate Professor Dr. Nippon Puapongskon, who has kindly accepted to be our keynote speaker today. Before I invite Professor Nippon to give his keynote address, allow me to briefly introduce him to all of us here. Professor Nippon is an economist and former dean of Thammasat University's Faculty of Economics, and now a distinguished fellow at Thailand Development Research Institute Foundation, which is generally known in Thailand as TDRI. He obtained a PhD in economics from the University of Hawaii and has a wealth of experiences and expertise in a wide range of specialized areas of this field, especially agricultural and labor economics. Apart from teaching and research, he has been involved in providing consultancy to various international agencies and organizations. May I now invite Professor Nippon to deliver his keynote address, please?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Professor Dr. Kampon Panya Gomet and Dean Nared Pakon. I'm, very delighted. It's a pleasure for me to be invited to speak in this international conference of the NIDA Law for Development. The issue of sustainability is, kind of, you can say it's a new concept, but originally it was discussed at the international level, the United Nations Conference, the so-called Brundtland Commission, if you remember, long time ago. And there are three pillars, the economic pillar, social pillar, and environmental pillar. But I think politics is also important. You need to speak about the political issue, administrative issue, etc. So now it becomes, globally accepted, even among private sector, who has neglected these issues for a long time. Several years ago, I have written, a paper on these issues. But what I'm going to talk today is different. I'm going to use a case study to illustrate the importance of sustainability. Okay, and this is one of my ongoing research. I'm still doing the research on this project, the Paddy pledging policy in Thailand. But let me see, how do I operate this one? Okay. Okay. Let me start with this. Thailand is among the countries, one of the countries with the highest degree of inequality. If you measure, this is the economist, very popular ways of measuring inequality. Okay. You can, the so-called Palmer Index, which measure the total income of families in the highest 10% brackets, divided by the families in the lowest 40% bracket, the blue one. Or if you use the red one, the quintile ratio between the income of the highest 20% and the lowest 20% households. You can see that Thailand is one of the country with very high level of inequality, behind China and Philippines. But if you compare it worldwide, we have much, we are in the league of Latin American countries, which has the highest degree of inequality. Okay. Now, the problem is this, in political economy, if you are living in a countries with high inequality, then the problem is, in terms of government policy, is the government will decide to have a redistribution policy or not? Some government decided not to have any redistribution policy. And the result is that if you don't have any redistribution policy, people will suffer. A large number of people, particularly people at the lower level of income, will suffer. So they will revolt, as happened in the case of People Revolution in Russia. You know that. And in Thailand, October, a student uprising in October 1973, part of that. But in some regime, they decided to suppress the people movement. So that happened in South Africa, and in Thailand in October 1976. I believe that we don't want that direction. So many governments decide that we should have a redistribution policy. But yet there are two ways of redistributing income. The first way is you use a populist policy, as happened, as adopted by most of the countries in Latin America. initiated by President Condola. I forget his name, from Brazil, long time ago. Why? Because country in Latin America is highly unequal, unequal. Because of the Spanish and the Portuguese regime, long time ago. Most of the land belonged to rich country, to rich people, to landlord, big landlord in those countries. If you have been there, you will realize that the poor has no place to stay in the rural area, so they have to migrate to live in the city. As a result, you have the so-called the slum, but they call it, rather than calling slum, they call new towns. And the story of new towns is very interesting because it's the movement of the poor who has no place in the rural area, because all of the fertile land belong to the rich people. So they organize themselves and decide to move into the city in an organized way. What they did is this. They look for the land in an urban area. Most of the land belong to the government. And then they properly plan the piece of land, this area is school, this area is housing, this area is hospital, something like that. They make a proper plan. And then it comes a D-Day. They launch the intrusion. They choose a long holiday. If you have 3 days, let's say starting with Saturday until Monday, so Friday evening, they move into the city and then seize the land and quickly build the towns. But on Tuesday morning, when people wake up, urban people wake up, you see the new towns. So they call them new towns. This happened in Peru. Okay. But the problem is that, when people are so poor, the problem of let's say, prostitute is not because of poverty. It's because of inequality. Because people's income are so different. Therefore, what politicians do, most of politicians decided that we have to give money to the poor. We have to redistribute to the poor. And the best way, the easiest way to get your vote is to campaign on populist policy. Okay. And as a result, this country goes into economic crisis and then followed by military coup. And after military coup, you have democracy. And for a while, you have populist policy, and then you have military coup again. This is what happened in Latin America and in Thailand. And we don't know what this kind of situation, because democracy can never consolidate. No consolidation of democracy in the country. So you have a vicious cycle of military coup and democratic government. The last choice, the fourth choice, is you to provide basic welfare for the people. And you provide a system of inclusive, a strategy of inclusive growth. And this is what happened in Europe, what happened in England. They provide the basic welfare and make sure that the path of development is inclusive growth. And that's why democracy can consolidate. That's why you can have a sustainable democracy. This is the issue I'm going to talk today, using the case of Paddy pledging policy as a case study. I think this is just to tell you. Then what will be a future direction? How do we solve the problem? It's easy to say that we should not have populist policy, but it's very difficult. If you ask any politician when they get elected, how do they want to get elected? The easiest way is to go for populist policy, you know. And I asked farmers, even after the paddy pledging policy have serious problem, they, at one time, the government failed to pay money to 1 million farmers. And yet, most of the farmers still like it. Believe it or not, including farmers who did not join the paddy pledging policy. They like it, they love it. So, sooner or later, when we have democracy, these populist policy will come back again. So how do we tackle as an academe? Now the case has already been, you know, the military government brought charge against both the various ministers and the prime minister, and the court has already made a decision, and all of them are guilty. And yet, if we have election again, I believe most politicians in Thailand will bring back the populist policy. And we can't, you know, even though we have a new constitution, it's impossible. No way that you can, prohibit them from using populist policy. And even this government is now adopting populist policy. You know, everyone go for populist policy, even in US, Mr. Trump, you know. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to talk about three topics, three issues. Great Paddy pledging fiasco, the politics of what is the politics of it? The objectives, operation and performance, and then why was there a large scale of corruption under the Paddy pledging policy? And this is a key problem, key issues. The implications for prevention of policy corruption, and this is very important. Okay. On the Paddy pledging policy, the economic stagnation following the 1997 led to the policy shift towards, you know, favoring the high paddy prices for farmers. And this resulted in the Great Paddy pledging fiasco of 2011 to 2014. The government promised to buy paddy, you know, every grain of rice at 15,000 baht per ton, which was at the time 50% higher than the market price. 50% higher than the market price. It should not be called paddy pledging policy. It should be called price support policy, because pledging means you bring something to pledge and you get something, you know, less than 100%. Once you get something more than 100%, it's not paddy pledge. It's not pledging. It is price support program. Okay. Such an interventions are different, completely different from the previous intervention, which are mostly at the border in the past. But for example, export tax. The government became the active buyer, active traders, holding and then releasing large stocks of rice and having impact on the movement of international prices of paddy, of rice. Okay, and as a result, the higher support price resulted in increase in production of rice, as you can see, huge increase in production of rice. Okay. The policy was mainly driven by the political reason. Mr. Thaksin want to win a landslide election. Why? Because he was in exile. He want to come back. And by winning the landslide election, he believes that he will be able to come back. And not only that, I think they want to make money. And I don't want to talk it on this podium. Yeah. His wealth was confiscated. Something like more than 40 billion baht. This is a revenge. That's my hypothesis. Okay. The stated objective is to increase farmer income. Of course, it increases farmer income in the short run. To stimulate the economy, to regulate the supply of rice, both in the domestic and export market, and maintain price stability, which has been achieved, frankly speaking. Then to increase the export prices of Thai rice, which never happened. Okay, this is how the Paddy scheme, work. Farmers, register first over here, and then once you register, and then you grow rice, you sell, you bring rice to the rice mill, in return for the receipt, warehouse receipt, you get money from the bank for agriculture. Then the rice mill is asked to mill the rice within 7 to 14 days, and then deliver rice to the warehouse. At the time, the warehouse business became very popular. You go anywhere in Thailand, new warehouse was under construction because a lot of profit from building a warehouse. And then the government, the government make a decision to sell rice, and there are traders who have to go and negotiate with the rice sale committee chaired by the Minister of Commerce. And basically, this is a scheme in which summarize of the scheme. What is the performance? The government bought more than 54 million tons of paddy, which accounted for 52% of total paddy production in 5 cropping seasons. 5 cropping seasons between October 2011 to May 2014. The military coup took place on the 22nd of May 2014. The total cost is not much, almost 1 trillion baht, 28.2 billion US dollar. Huge, huge. And the total loss, 600 billion baht. You compare the 600 and it's 60% of the total cost of operation, the loss. And out of this loss, at least 150 billion is corruption money in rice sale and rice stock. 150 billion. Mr. Thaksin wealth, which was confiscated, was something like 40 billion, 40 to 45 billion. So, you can see. Okay, that's my hypothesis. And this is the quantity of production comparing to pledged paddy. Okay, and the value of money paid to the farmers. The green line is the value of the money paid to the farmers. And this is the production. This is the pledged paddy. You can see. Okay. Now, fiscal loss of the paddy pledging project. These are estimated, okay, in 2015, 550 billion thousand. And then this is estimated by Ministry of Finance after the project I think in September 2015. And then this is in September 2016, last year. Yeah. Already 600 billion baht. Okay. Who gained and who lost? The gainers are farmers who sold rice to the government, obtained, obviously, of course, higher paddy pledging price. Those who sold rice to the private trader. Some of the farmers did not participate in the program, but they also gained because once the government decided to buy all the paddy price increased. So those who did not join the program also benefited. Okay. Yet the middle class and the rich farmers reap most of the benefit. They constitute 56% of the farmers, and the benefit is 82%. So it's unequal distribution. Okay. The consumers also benefit at low retail price because government decided to sell rice at low price. Okay. So retail price was very low. And there are almost 1,000 participated millers out of 1,800 millers who participated in the program. More than almost 2,000 warehouse owners, more than 50 surveyors. These are the beneficiaries. A few connected traders who had political privilege to buy rice from the government, 2 or 3 companies. Okay, very few. And there were cheating by millers. The miller, the warehouse, the owners, warehouse owners, surveyors, they all colluded, to accept rice, poor quality of rice into the warehouse. Okay, these are people who make profit. Then loser, of course, the taxpayers, the non-participating millers, community enterprise. A lot of community enterprise that produce, rice, high-value rice, their business gone, no business at all. And packaged rice wholesaler as well as exporters. The exporter is a group which hurt most during the time because volume of export declined substantially. We used to be #1 rice exporter. During the time, we became #3 rice exporter. Okay, these are the total benefit, distribution of benefit by 3 groups of farmers, the small farmer, medium farmer, and large farmers. And you can see the distribution of the benefits, which are very unequal. Okay. Now, this is the so-called economic rent and corruption. I try to estimate, who gain how much money goes to each party. And this is the economic concept of economic rent. Corruption is part of the economic rent, and cheating is also part of the economic rent. So these are the distribution of those extra benefit, you can call extra benefit to various various people who participated in the programs. Okay. Now, the government always argue that, this policy is good for the country, good for the farmers. As a result, it is good for the country. So as an economist, I said, okay, we have to estimate whether or not this is true. So in economics, we have the welfare cost. And welfare cost is the benefit to the society minus cost to the society. So it's called welfare cost. So you have to include the benefit for everyone minus the cost to everyone. So we estimated that and find out that it's negative. There is a negative welfare cost. So the total social cost exceeded total social benefits by 120 billion baht, or 3,800 billion US dollars. Okay, that's society. That it means that society lost. You can't say that society gained. Any good government, good policy has to benefit the society, net benefit to the society, not net loss. Okay, and these are the way we estimate the welfare cost of the policy. Okay, I don't want to go into details for this group of people. Okay, the other impacts on Thai economy. Mr. Thaksin's myth is that by limiting the rice supply and holding large enough stock of rice in government hand, it will result in an increase in export prices of Thai rice because we are the largest exporter of Thai rice. So basically he believes in monopoly. He wants to monopolize the market. And the way he thinks is that, okay, this is like Saudi Arabia who hold large stock of oil. And if you hold on the stock, you don't limit the stock. You don't sell it. What happened? Oil price increase. But you can't compare rice with oil. Why not? Oil can be stocked in the land. Rice has to be grown. And once the price of rice increase, what happened? Farmers around the world, everywhere will start growing more rice. As a result, you have more rice, but oil is constant. That's the first issue. The second problem is that, you keep rice in the stock. What happened? The value depreciates. You keep oil in the ground, value increase. It's unlike rice is not wine. You keep wine in the cellar. The value appreciates. You keep rice in the warehouse, the value depreciates rapidly. So that's a problem, of thinking. And Mr. Thaksin used to be a telecom monopolist. And so the way he thinks, this is the way he thinks. Yeah. The fact is, what is a fact? Fact is that export price of rice decline most of the time during the policy. Why? We hold a large stock. How large is the stock? After the military coup, the government checked the stock. There was something like a little bit more than 18.6 million tons. In fact, very tiny. Comparing to Chinese government, China stock and Indian stock, those two countries hold something like 100 million tons. But why in case of Thailand hold only 20 million, 18 million tons, and yet the world price decline? Why? Why Indian hold 100 million tons, nothing happened to the world price? Because stock in Thailand is a liquid stock. Rice stock in China and rice stock in India are not liquid stock. It's a stock for domestic consumption. It's not the stock for export. In Thailand, those 18 million tons is a stock for export. So every importer know that if Thailand have a large stock and I buy the rice at a higher price, what happens if the government release the stock in the tomorrow? I make loss. I may be bankrupt. So what happened? My expectation is that if the minute the government release the rice, the price will decline. So I'm not going to buy it at high price. I'm going to buy it at low price. This is the fact. Okay. So the price continued to be low after the termination of the policy in May 2014, thanks to the stock of 18.6 million tons. Yet, rice export during the time also fell sharply. And moreover, Thailand lost its reputation as the most reliable rice exporter in the world. We lost that reputation, and it took years. And this tell you the price. You see, during the paddy pledging period, rice declined instead of increasing export price. And then suddenly, now it increased. When right after this government sold all of the edible stock. All of the edible stock. Now we have no more, liquid stock, so price surge. So this is also the price of homily, the jasmine rice, famous jasmine rice. And this is the declining in rice export during the time, during the period. Okay. Now the government, one of the government's unforgivable mistake is that in the fourth and fifth season, the government did not have enough liquidity to pay, particularly in the fifth season, final season. It didn't have money to pay 1 million farmers. The amount of money owed to the farmer is not much, 125 billion baht. Farmers already deliver rice to the government, so rice to the government with no pay, no money. So some of the farmers decided to commit suicide. I don't know how many for sure, but there are at least, probably a few, 4 to 5 people. But according to the newspaper, there are more than about a dozen of them committed suicide. But of course, those farmers have to, who did not commit suicide, they have to borrow money from the local money lenders. Otherwise, they don't have money to survive. That's the unforgivable mistake. And the government knows that. And yet, it decided not to do anything. It believed that it can sell rice and get enough money to pay the farmers. Okay. So it decided to borrow right after the dissolution of the parliament, which is prohibited. Once you dissolve the parliament, you don't have any rights to borrow money because that's a commitment. If you borrow money, you will create a commitment to the future government. So you don't have any legitimacy to do so. This is legal now. So when you study these kind of things, you have to bring in, various disciplines. Okay. So the excessive rice expansion, there are also other impact. Farmers began to expand rice production. As a result, you have higher cost of production, rental, the rent of land rent increase, more than double. Seed costs increase, labor costs increase, everything increase. And farmers, declining quality of rice because farmers decide to grow short duration of rice variety, use short duration variety of rice. Rather than 130 to 130 days, they use the varieties with less than 100 days, because that means they can grow more rice. They can grow as many as 3 times of crops, 3 crops in a year, even though the government have the paddy patching policy, the scheme work for 2 seasons. But if you have 3 seasons, you can make sure that you timing your production in a way that you can sell all of your rice, because government decided to buy every grain of rice. So that's an incentive. Okay. And government trading also means decline in rice quality. The rice exported by the connected traders, one of the connected traders who now in jail, it went to Indonesia and went to Iran. It was rejected because of the quality of the rice. Okay. And rapid expansion of rice mill capacity resulted in excess capacity of millers. Now we have 125 million tons per year of milling capacity, comparing to the production of at most 30 million tons. So almost more than 4 times, about 4 times. So why was there a large scale of corruption under the Paddy pledging policy? And this is a very important issue. And this brings us, the minister are now in jail. The prime minister ran away. But that's not the objective of my study. We, academia, our objective is not to, find the wrongdoers. Not our objective. Our objective is to prevent corruption. Okay. Yeah, there are two important. So let's talk about corruption. Two important channels of corruption. The millers deliver low quality or long type of rice. Rather than deliver the jasmine rice, they deliver white rice, which the price is much lower. And some of the rice, a few million tons, were bought from Myanmar, from Cambodia, and from Laos, and deliver it to the warehouse. And I know some of those village leader, village chief, who told me that he is what do you call, political canvasser of an influential politician who owned the rice mills. So he said, I have to go and drive the trucks from Cambodia to the mills in Central Plain, because no other people there driving the truck. He has to drive it. So this is what happened. Okay. And after the coup, the inspection working committee found that I think more than 60% of the stock were of wrong type of rice. And some of the rice stock are of the poor quality. It's not edible, not for human consumption. And, okay. Now, that's the first way. The second way is corruption in government rice sale, because the government monopolized the rice sale. Okay. There is a fake G2G sale. Normally, when there is a G2G, government to government sale, the system has to follow a strict procedure. But this government, particularly the Minister of Commerce, engaged in fake G2G and told the public that it's a G2G. But in fact, it is not. And now the court already made the decision that it's fake, it's not real. Okay. The rice was actually sold to the connected rice traders at lower than market price. That's the major source of corruption. But this source and corruption and the production of packaged rice, the so-called blue flag packaged rice for the poor. For these two items, I estimated that the amount of corruption amounted to 100 billion baht. 100 billion baht. The first item is about 30 to 40 billion baht. This one alone is 100 billion baht. Okay. Selling to connected rice trader without any bidding, no bidding at all. Okay. And other channels, the cronies, as I told you, bought rice from the stock before 2011, but took out the rice from the new hedging scheme. They made a contract with the government to buy all rice at low price. But when they take out the rice from the stock, they decided to take the new rice with higher quality. Okay. So all sorts of corruption. Why was there huge magnitude of corruption? my hypothesis at the beginning is that Paddy pledging policy was not only designed in order to win the landslide election, but also to generate monopoly land for someone, quote unquote, someone. Okay, I'm not going to tell you who is that someone. Okay. Theoretically, there seems to be a system and procedure to prevent corruption, according to the words, to the language. Official language. Very good system. You look at the system, no corruption. Okay. But in practice, there was a serious governance problem at both the policy and the implementation levels. This is a issue, major issue for you now. What's wrong with the policy? Government intervened at every stage of live trading, particularly the policy to corner the market or the export market. We believe that we can corner the export market, arguing that the exporter sell rice at too low a price and thus exploit the farmers. This is their argument, the government's argument. Then it promised to buy every grain of rice at 15,000 baht, which is 50% higher than the market price, yet arguing that it would not make any loss. Because once it controls most of the rice supplies, the international price will increase. But the evidence shows the contrary. You know that? Okay. So what are that's the policy problem. Yeah, you believe that you can monopolize the world market. Therefore, you can increase, selling export price, which is not true. What are the implementation problems? It's a lot of implementation problems. No separation of policy making authority and implementation authority, because the Minister of Commerce controls both functions. He has the authority to authorize the sale of government live sale. He sits in the live sale committee as a chairman. As a chairman. So no separation of authority. That's very important. If you want to decide a good system, you have to separate the authority. No accountability and no transparency. No regular financial reports by all operating agencies, particularly two of the most important organizations, the Public Warehouse Organization and the Farmer Market Organization, who control the warehouses. No regular reports at all, and therefore no consolidated financial account. The government passed law forcing all private companies who are listed in the stock market to have consolidated financial account, but the government themselves do not have consolidated accounts. Believe it or not. Okay. The government refused to accept the financial report of the subcommittee on financial account report. In Thai we call คณะกรรมการปิดบัญชี headed by the deputy permanent secretary, Ms. Supa, who is now one of the commissioner of the National Anti-Corruption Commission. Okay. And accused the chairman of leaking the information and set up a committee to investigate her. You see, she's the one who told the public that there was something, rice missing of 3 million tons of missing rice from the stock. And the government refused to accept that fact. Okay. Government withheld important information on selling price lies and outstanding stock. All the time, no information on selling price and the outstanding stock. Those information are secret. and make it my life, difficult because I have to estimate the value of loss and the value of corruption, and that's the most important piece of information I have to get. It took me months and months to get that information until finally one of my friend minister who was appointed to take charge. He was the minister of the office of the prime minister. He has to come to rescue the government because the public, the press, the media has attacked the government severely on not releasing this information. So the minute he gave the interview, it gave me a clue how to estimate the price of selling price of the selling price of the government, and at that moment I was able to correctly estimate the loss. The operating agency also did not disclose any key information. MOC shut down the source of information on rice export by transferring the authority. In the past, the authority to issue rice export permit for jasmine rice is done by the Chamber of Commerce, Thai Chamber of Commerce, which is a private sector. The government transfer that authority back to the ministry because the government knows that if that piece of information lies with the Chamber of Commerce, all the association of rice exporter knows of who are the exporter and how much. So they want to conceal those information. So it did, everything to conceal the information. So no transparency at all. Conflicts of interest. Appointing the politician to head a warehouse inspection working group. Once there was a leak information from the committee on financial account, Ms. Supha, that there was something, the rice missing from the stock of 3 million tons. The government set up its committee, and the committee was headed by politicians, believe it or not. And the committee, there were something like almost 2,000 warehouses around the country. The committee work is only 1 day and finish, and never released the report to the public. Okay. Other misbehavior. One rice sale contract did not specify the type of rice to be sold by the government. It specified the price, but not what type of rice it want to buy from the government. Believe it or not. This evidence is given to the court. Okay, by the Attorney General. Okay, in fact, the fake G2G contracts, there were altogether 8 contracts. But the decision that the court made was based on only 4 contracts. More cases will come to the court. Okay. They changed the legal language of the G2G contracts. Originally, the legal language, the contract itself, is, very rigorous. They changed it. Selling a contract even before the launch of the Paddy pledging scheme. Paddy pledging program was launched on the 5th of October 2011. This contract was signed on the 2nd of October, ahead of the scheme. So it means they planned something already make plan. The invoice to trader who purchased rice from the government through the connected traders did not specify the price of rice. They did all sorts of things to conceal all the information. Now, the criminal court decision in two major cases. Okay, fake G2G case against the Minister of Commerce, politicians, high-ranking officers, and private traders, especially the cronies. And the charge against the Prime Minister of breach of statutory duty and non-feasance too. Okay. Defendants are guilty in both cases. Note that the Prime Minister is not guilty of non-feasance in case of wrong type or poor quality of life in the warehouse, because there's a system there. But she is found guilty in charge of non-feasance of fake G2G, because she gave an interview that it's G2G. Okay. And yet the decision is not unanimous. One judge decided that she's not guilty. Implications. This comes to the important point. How do we prevent this sort of policy corruption? We academia and researcher role is not to investigate who corrupts, but to search for the corruption measure, preventive measures, and make policy recommendations. This is our job, and our job is not yet finished. And I think this is our duty to finish it. It's still unfinished business. Okay. The final objective of my research is to propose the institutional or rule reform in 4 areas: economic areas, public policy area, administrative, as well as legal. Why do we need to strengthen the existing rules and establish the new institution governing the government policy and policy implementation? The Paddy pledging scheme was not only the most costly, public scheme, but also most corrupted one, the most expensive one in our history. Most expensive one. But it also destroys the public confidence in democracy, resulting in a military coup. This is not what we want. We don't want military coup. We want democracy. Consequently, the democracy cannot be consolidated in Thai society. Thailand is a country with largest number of military coups in the last 20 years. Second largest number country, second largest, not the largest, second largest in terms of number of military coups. Economic rule. The government must strictly adhere to Section 725 in the new constitution. The state shall refrain from engagement in enterprise in competition with private sector except in cases of necessity. I think we have to spell out this. This is in the directive principle of state policy. The directive principle of state policy in the new constitution. The state shall also strictly maintain its financial and fiscal discipline, Section 62 of Chapter 5, duties of the state. แนวนโยบายพื้นฐานแห่งรัฐ We need to legislate a new fiscal act. At the beginning, there was a talk that a new fiscal act should be the subordinate law of the constitution, but I don't know, they decided not to have that subordinate law. The argument, I don't know, I don't understand. Argument is that constitution is always, abolished. So if you have a subordinate law for the constitution law, then the law will have serious problem. I don't understand. Yeah. So among lawyers, you have to talk about that. But anyway, we must have an act. arguing that an act will last longer than the Constitution, something like that, which is true. Okay. Politics and policy determination rules. Strictly adhere to Section 140, 141, 162 in the Constitution. All political parties should have legitimate rights. I believe that all political parties should have legitimate rights to propose and campaign on populist policy. It is their legitimate rights. Because they understand the people. Military leaders never understand the people. Bureaucrats never understand the academia also do not understand them. Politicians understand them much better than other people. So it is their legitimate right to do so. However, once elected, you campaign okay on populist policy, but the minute you are elected and you form the government must prepare the budget for the policy and submit it for the approval of the parliament. This is very important. You have to prepare the budget for your policy. Why? The law should include, the budget law should include expenditure by policy, sources of finance, and avoiding the use of off-budget. At the moment we use off-budget, including this government, we use off-budget. The off-budget mainly come from the Bank for Agriculture and the government saving bank. And in the past, the commercial bank, one of the commercial bank called Krung Thai Bank. Those are big source of off-budget money, major source. So we have to strengthen the use of these off-budget. Incorporate them into the annual budget. It's okay if you want to use that off-budget money, but you have to tell the public how much money you are going to use and get the approval by the parliament. That's the only source of the major discipline, because this is under the democracy. You know, you cannot use the court, you cannot use other means, you have to use the parliamentary means to discipline the government, because this is politics. Now, that's the first step. Administrative institution. All policy must be carried out in the transparent manner. Duties of the state, Section 59. We already have the Constitution, but you know, Constitution will be meaningless if we don't follow it. The administrative system must be in accordance with the principle of good public governance, Section 76. The government agency must prepare consolidated and separate financial reports and disclose the report. All government agencies have to do that. This is to help the officer who do not want to corrupt and protect them. We need a good system of, you know, public administration. This is a school of public administration. This is a college, a university of public administration when it was first set up many, decades ago. The public administration is very important. Legal and court. Finally, the criminal court has recently shown very strong tendency towards stricter enforcement of the law against all kinds of corruption, public as well as private. The case of the TV anchorman, you remember? Yeah. Maximum penalty without bail. Anyone who corrupted, the court will sentence them to the maximum penalty without bail. All courts now, which is a good news for Thailand. You know, higher bail bond. In the past, the maximum bail bond was 20 million. During this case of the case against the prime minister, the court were making a making a deliberation of how much will be the bond. Someone proposed the bond as high as 80 million baht, but finally they decided to go with 50 million baht, which is historically high. Okay, so that's the clear evidence that our court is now, very proactive in anti-corruption case. Very good. But the Paddy pledging policy involves high-level government officers, ministers, prime minister, who have exceptional power, political influence, and wealth. Very important. Very wealthy people or politicians. Most of the politicians, sorry, not all, are very wealthy. Therefore, what happens when you are considering, deliberating the important case like this? A lot of lobbying. Lots of lobbying. There has been a recommendation by one Supreme Court judge that a special case like the Paddy pledging case, the court should deliberate and finalize the decision within 30 to 40 days. He said that this case is easy, not that difficult. It only takes 30 days to make decision, not 1 year. It took us more than 1 year to make the decision, which in fact we can finalize within 30 days. And more important, if you want to finalize within 30 days to prevent the lobbying, one interesting suggestion is that all judges have to stay in a safe house with no or minimal communication with the public. That's very important. Like a case of US, you have a hearing of the jury. The jury cannot go anywhere. And I think, but this is not, this is not a regular practice. This is only a practice for under some special circumstance. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Nippon, for the wonderful talk. It saddened and shocked me how much the country was damaged from just one policy. Well, now this is time for questions. So please raise your hand if you'd like to ask questions, and also please introduce yourself briefly. We will pass the microphone to you. Okay. Thank you.
Good morning. Do I need to stand or? My name is Dr. Sangeeta Laha, and I'm a professor in Amity Law University based in Lucknow. It's in India. You raised something very important points. We, as a professor of law, we were not aware of. I mean, you brought us some very intricacies regarding your policies, which to some extent we find similar with that of India. No doubt about it.
You have more sophisticated intervention than Thailand.
And thank you to you, sir, for bringing out such a wonderful but the intricate problems of your country. I mean, I was curious to know. I was not aware of it. But my presentation your presentation raised a concern. The concern is that you are talking about policies which at times are not effective. You are also raising concern for the committees that are being set up where headed by a person where you're also doubting the personality. Yeah. So are we, and this is going on and on in many countries in the South Asiatic regions.
Exactly.
Then it's very difficult for us to go against the government, you know. especially in India, because corruption has also entered in our blood also, and it's for, for your own benefit, which you also said you didn't want to point out. Then how do we as academics, we are concerned, we want to do something, then how do we break this monopoly of corruption? Alone, I find it's very difficult. So how do we solve it, or?
We can't solve all the problem as an academia, but we should stick to some principle. At least in my institute, in the past, my institute, you look at the board members, look at previous president. I used to be a president. Finally they became minister or deputy minister or prime minister. My institute, one of the prime minister. We have several ministers. And then later on, there was a development. When I was a president, we issued a rule that you can't be in a committee, any political committee. You can't be advisor to the prime minister or to the minister. If you want to be the minister or advisor to minister or prime minister, you have to resign and don't come back. Don't come back. Now, the present president is more stricter than me. I was approached to be the member of the National Legislative Committee, National Reform Committee, the current one. We have to decline all those jobs. We can't. If you want to be, resign. Don't come back. This, I think, very important to academia. We have to, I can't say about other people, but as an academia, this is our job. If you want to do this kind of thing and you want to create the public confidence in academia, this is the way you do. I used to be the commissioner in various important jobs, particularly in state enterprise. I used to be the commissioner, the board directors of one big bank owned by the government. In that year, my income was very high. I was in the highest top bracket for the first time in my life. I paid something like 37% of tax. And then you know what? Then you want to be there because you have very high income, and when you go travel abroad, you travel by first class. So what happened? You get hooked, you get trapped, then you sell yourself, your soul. So to prevent that, you can't be that. You can't be involved with politics. If you want to be advisor, fine, go. And don't come back. And don't say that you are a professor. This is, I think the American system on this kind of thing is very good. Very good. I don't know whether that answers your question, but at least in a narrow sense.
Yeah, thank you. But I think, Professor, you are talking on individual basis, individual principles,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like my colleague said, I have to satisfy before I go for a presentation. That's an individual way of satisfaction. But where corruption is so rampant.
That's why I'm saying propose all those institutional reforms. And we have to fight for all those institutional reforms at the national level.
Not from the individual capacity, but as a team, as a whole, we have to work. And we have to generate and motivate by that, you know, on the principles. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Field ค่ะ
ค Good morning. My name is Dipendra and I'm with Thammasat University and also with NIDA. This was a very interesting talk and thank you for sharing this. So my question was, so this is more generic question somehow related with your presentation and also a broader question on political risk-taking. When senior politicians are criminalized for taking policy risks, wouldn't that discourage political risk-taking? Because, again, at the end of the day, it's politicians who need to take risk. It's not the judge or it's not the military government or anyone else. So wouldn't that discourage, in the long run, wouldn't that be a precedent?
No, at the moment, the existing system discourage people. We need good people to be in politics. We need young people, capable people to be in politics. And at the moment in Thailand, sadly speaking, we haven't seen any young people coming into politics. But that's the military coup, discouraged that. Yeah. But there is something much more than what I'm speaking today. The most important thing is you have to have an open politics. Thailand never have we used to have an open politics for a brief period. After what's the year? 1997 Constitution. Our 1997 Constitution, which is very good constitution, lead to open politics. And at that time, you see new people, new face and young people coming into the politics. And the politics, very lively, there are hope. People have hope. But now, that picture is gone partly because of the corruption and politics and military coup. And another issue is decentralization. Decentralization is an avenue for open politics because you will have more politicians at local level who used to be administrators at the local level, and they gradually climbing up the ladder to become the administrator at national level. In India, you have the good that system, but too much regulation at state level. Okay, but in Thailand, we are heavily centralized, and as a result, we don't have the opportunities for local politicians to go up. You see that in U.S. there's a very good system where the president come from governor, things like that, but don't elect the president from business. Never. In Thailand, in Italy, in US, that. But anyway, open politics is very important, and my, in my talk, it's only part of it. And I believe the institutional reform, if we have this kind of institutional reform, it will not discourage good politicians. What we want is good politicians. Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you very much, Ajahn, for your... This is difficult to present so candidly. I am a researcher on water, waste, and energy ownership. Just moving towards your final, which is most important for us to look to the future. You had mentioned about institutional reforms through the economic redefinition, policy making, administrative, and legal processes. Just to bring what's your opinion on, it's all billion and million baht challenges. That's why the problems have grown up so much. What would have been the condition if it is a bottoms-up approach, like distributed development and the rural, at the rural level, at the town level, at the local habitat level, we empowered them, and then we own the rice pledging, for instance. Then the money won't be billion baht. number one. And the number two is that we take care of, because I'm a farmer of this village. I'm a private sector of this village. I'm a rice miller of this village. We won't let the problem go out of hand, and we don't have to pledge the rice to somebody sitting 1,000 kilometers away. So this spirit of ownership, which end of the day boils down to bottoms up development or distributed development or empowerment at the local level, would that make a difference?
This is very difficult question and very good question. The answer is yes and no. Okay, we have to go for, the bottom of development. That's easier said than done. In Thailand, we never have that kind of system. All the development policy is dictated from the top. But at the moment you see, a rise of the new movement among local people, among local businessmen, farmers at local level who organize themselves. But these segments, these are the alternative development, which is still very small relative to the big picture. You can't hope that the organized group of farmers will be able to solve the big problems of all farmers. I'm not talking about today, unfortunately, I haven't talked about how we develop the agricultural sector, how do we solve the problem of, inequality between farm and non-farm sector, and that's another issue. But that's a big issue. The current movement, and there has been a very strong very strong movement, of new farmer organizations in cooperation with businessmen. But you estimate the total impact. It's very small. For example, the organic rice, organic vegetables, those sort of things, altogether they account for still less than 5% of total production. So very small. But it doesn't mean that those movements are not important. Those movements are important for certain groups of farmers, but there is still a major implication for rural development in Thailand, because we used to have a rural development strategy in 1980s, but after that we never have a rural development strategy at all. And this is very important for Thailand, but as I said, Thailand is heavily centralized. Everything comes from the top, and we didn't even have election at the provincial level. And that's the first thing we should go for, rural, an election at the provincial level, and let people, decide their own future. People in the province, they should decide their own future. But before going for that, we need to prepare ourselves in terms of human resource, in terms of institution. If you don't prepare the institution and human resource, then what will happen is chaos. The people will those local politicians will make their own, strive for their own benefit first, rather than people benefit. And the lesson is that once we have a Tambon development law, the decentralization law, we decided to have something like 7,000 sub-districts, what you call Tambon, more than 7,000 sub-districts, which are too small. And as a result, they can't do anything. They can't develop anything. Yeah, it's very serious, because the Ministry of Interior, my hypothesis, Ministry of Interior did not want to have decentralized. They want to control the whole country. We still have a long way to go in Thailand in terms of rural development and empower the people.
I'm sorry, I need to stop the questions now,
Okay,
since
the
we're
last
running
one.
behind the
Ready?
schedule.
Yeah. The
one
lady
more
has
yeah okay
one
yes
more.
sure
The lady said.
โอเคฟิล์มคะผู้หญิงข้างหน้าค่ะใช่โอเค that would be last question yeah thank you
สวัสดีค่ะดิฉันชูปูจาค่ะดิฉันเรียนภาษาไทยกับ Business Sustainability ค่ะ
ครับ
I attended a conference in NIDA the last time where business sustainability was introduced as Thailand's gift to the world. I don't have a question, but just for my own understanding, I made an observation. Moderation was the key element of business sustainability. And incomplete marketplace was a threat to sustainability. I think in the rice pledging scenario, both these were not followed totally. There was an absence of moderation. Everything was too quick. And monopoly meant incomplete marketplace, absence of competitors. So it's very sad that the country that gave the gift to the world actually had to go through this.
Thank you.
Okay, ขอบคุณค่ะ
Yeah, we are Buddhists. I'm Buddhist. And we believe in moderation. Unfortunately, market mechanism, you can't go to the extreme. And government intervention, you also cannot go to the extreme. You have to take, the middle way. The moderation is a major, is an important philosophy. I think particularly in Asia. We people in Asia, even in India, in Hindus, Buddhism is influenced by Hindus. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
We would like to express our gratitude to Professor Nippon for your contribution today. May I invite Professor Nared to present a token of appreciation to Professor Nippon, please? Thank you very much, ขอบคุณค่ะ Now it is time for our 15 minutes break. So may I remind you that the next session will resume at 11:15. So please don't be late, yeah? And also during the break, there will be a special. ได้ค่ะ Okay. During the break, there will be a special poster presentation. So I'd like to invite you all to attend this while enjoying your tea and coffee. Okay? Thank you very much and see you in 15 minutes. On sustainability initiative, interdisciplinary research and practice. ได้เลย So we're honored to have here with us three eminent scholars. Please welcome Professor Dr. Sakda Thanikun, Ms. Chanya Panyakampon, and Dr. Lee Ren Liang. Now may I give the floor to Dr. Grisadakorn, who will be the moderator for this session. Thank you.
Thanks very much for Dr. Prapin. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our plenary session, Sustainability Initiative, Interdisciplinary Research and Practice. So my name is Grisadakorn Wangwutikun, and I'm a lecturer here at from the law school. It's my honor to be here as moderator. So the goal of this session is to examine how can sustainability be applied in various fields and how to attain sustainable development. You'll be hearing the presentations from our three distinguished scholars. But before we get started, may I briefly introduce to you our panelists. Our first speaker is Professor Sakda Thanikun. He is a professor of law and the former dean of the Faculty of Law, Chulalongkorn University. He earned 2 doctorates in law from 2 universities, Kyoto University in Japan and the University of Washington at Seattle in the US. His legal expertise covers a wide range of areas from law and economics through international economics law and the Japanese legal system. Apart from scholarly contribution Dr. Sakda has made available his legal expertise outside his university, especially by sitting on numerous national commissions and other public service bodies dealing with specialized legal issues. Today he will be speaking to us on the topic Middle Income Trap, Aging Society and Economic Growth Solution is Sustainable Development a Missing Piece. So our second speaker is Ms. Chanya Panya Gampon. She is a distinguished King's Scholar. She attended two top universities in the US, namely Stanford University, where she obtained a bachelor degree in economics and mathematics and computational science with honors, and Cornell University, from which she graduated with a Juris degree. She now teaches at the School of Global Studies of Thammasat University. As a young scholar, she has already had extensive experiences and practical as well as academic experiences, having worked at famous law firms such as Baker and McKinsey in Bangkok, and also engaged in many research projects. Her research interests also cover a wide range of areas, such as empirical legal studies to specialized areas of law, such as international trade law and environmental law. Today, she is sharing with us her expertise and her expert opinion on the topic of de-biasing effects of Thailand's Empowerment of Persons with Disability Act, a comparative studies of Article 33 to Article 35. So, and our last speaker is Dr. Lee Ren Liang. He obtained his PhD in Social Development and Management, environmental management from here at NIDA. Before that, interestingly, he got his bachelor and master degree in Thai language and culture from Beijing University, China. He is an expert in Chinese studies, ASEAN community studies, international relations, and public policy. With the expertise, he therefore has been appointed as a Thai-Chinese dictionary creating committee of the Royal Institute. He has many national academic research, such as China's policy on development of modern agriculture, farmers, and countryside. He has been currently appointed as a director of master degree in social development of School of Social and Environmental Development here at NIDA. Today, he will be speaking to us on the topic, Next Step of China's Reform Towards Sustainability. So what I would like to do here is to let each panelist talk about his or her topics for 15 minutes, and then open up for questions. Something fresh in your mind, so you will be able to ask the question and discuss about his or her topics. If the folks with microphone just be at ready. After that, I will give 5 minutes for each panelist to conclude or add something if you want. So let's begin with our first speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Sakda Thanitgun, who will be speaking to us on the topic of middle income trap, aging society, and economic growth solution is sustainable development, a missing pieces.
Good morning. Okay. Good morning. I'm Sakda, and this morning we heard a wonderful talk from Professor Nippon. He is one of the top-notch economists in Thailand. And the interesting thing is, he's only one economist who sits among the top-notch lawyers. So he's an economist who know about laws. That is wonderful talk. And he talked about, the Thai farmer, which is one of the very low-income population in Thailand. But my topic would be a little bit bigger. We talk about someone who are richer. So it's more like something not really sad, because when you talk about farmer, you feel like you are sad. But in the total picture of Thailand, I think, of course, low-income people like farmer, those are people that we should pay attention to. Now, but from my overall picture of Thailand, I would talk about from now on what are going to move into. Currently, we have the problem with the so-called middle income trap, meaning that we cannot move up, but we cannot stay the same because we are being catching up by our friends actually. And then we also have the so-called the problem of aging society. Just for example, myself, I would turn 60 next year. And from now in the next 70 years, I would be 79. And at 79, in the next 70 years, Thailand would become at the peak of being aging society, meaning that 30% of Thai populations, including myself, are not working. But we are going to depend on the income. Basically, it would be the pension, government pensions, that I would receive each month from the government. And when I visit the hospital, I would visit one of the best hospitals, state hospital, like Chulalongkorn Hospital. And I would pay very little, okay? And then the question is, who are going to pay my pension every month? Who pay for the doctor who treat me? Who pay for the rather expensive drug that the doctor give me? It would be young people like here, sitting here. It would be you who pay me. Now, what is problem with that is, even though now we have, especially international guests, you are coming from India, from Indonesia, you visiting Bangkok for a few days. Bangkok is not bad, you look at this auditorium, very impressive. You go into the street, you will find very decent restaurant. Thai people are dressing nice. Because currently Thailand GDP per capita is 6,000 US dollar. Mean that each person, the income is 6,000 US dollar per person per year. That is upper middle income. Okay. The question is, we should be happy, right? But we cannot be very happy. From now on, in the next 20 years, Thailand needs to move because, as I mentioned, when the big budget of the government is going to spending on, treating old people or healthcare service, it would mean that the budget would be less for the so-called for infrastructure. Of course, the Thai government spent a big chunk of money for education too. And now on, they're going to spend a big chunk of money. The largest budget for the Thai government would be education. But now, if I'm in business sector, I am export chicken meat to the EU, to Japan, and bring a lot of money into Thailand. I am Japanese investor producing pickup truck in Thailand, and we export millions of pickup truck overseas and earn money into Thailand. I would need road to export. I would need airport. I would need deep sea port. I would need electricity to run my company. I need industrial water. But the budget for the government to build those infrastructure for me is little. And I would have trouble in competing with my competitor overseas. That is the problem with Thailand. Okay? So the budget, you don't have budget for infrastructure. But you have to spend a lot of budget to take care of old people, healthcare, education. And then it would mean that in the next future, Thailand would, going down from middle income. And we would have less money to spend. The living standard would getting lower and lower. Okay? But before I move into that, because the topic is if we try to move, because the topic in the next 3 years that Thailand want to achieve, because it is dictated by the current constitution that Thailand must have 20-year plan, strategic plan. What would be the goal of Thailand in the next 20 years? The first thing is Thailand want to have the GDP per capita of 15,000 US dollar per person per year. That is the aim in the next 20 years. The second one is Thailand want to achieve GDP growth of 5% per year, every year for 20 years. And then the next one, it would be the productivity. Productivity is economic jargon. It would mean that we would be efficient 3% every year, so that we can maintain this standard of living in the next 20 years. Okay. Now, my question in my presentation is, just like one of our international guests mentioned, Thailand, make a gift of moderation to the world. And now seem like Thailand forget about that. Or Thailand is now greedy, want to become very rich, and forgot about sustainable development. Okay, that is my questions. We want to move there, but do we forget about sustainable development? Okay, that would be my big questions. Then I should start with the world economy, just only going very brief. We will know that after 1947, the most important value, share value in the world is peace. Because after World War II, people know that war is bad, definitely bad. So peace is important, the most important. That's why we have UN, United Nations. And when we have the UN to maintain peace, we want the living standard of people to be better too. That's why we have the so-called the Bretton Woods system, 1947. We have the GATT to take care of tariff. We have the IMF to take care of monetary relations. We have the World Bank to help Europeans and Japanese to recover from the World War II and come back to join the trading community. That is the Bretton Woods institutions. And it worked very well. The world economic growth was impressive in the past 40 years. Until, just like Professor Nippon mentioned, actually it's before that. Before that, in the 70s, before the Stockholm Declarations, in the 70s, we have the so-called report by Du Bois and Ward. The idea is only one Earth. Because when you talk about market economy, Adam Smith mentioned about market economy in 1776. The ecology system was not in the picture at all. But after economic growth, after World War II, now people realize that if the growth is going to go like this, the ecology cannot sustain. That is why we have one of the first report, only one Earth report for the Stockholm. And then the Stockholm Conference relate to the three legal instruments, Stockholm Action Plan, UNEP, and Stockholm Declarations. Now, and then we have the Brundtland Commission report before we have the Leo. Brundtland was the former Norwegian Prime Minister. And his report is Our Common Future, which is very influential. When I was a PhD student studying in Japan, my Japanese professor gave it to me and said, you should read this one. Because my aim when I was a student from Thailand, a poor country at that time compared to Japan, we want to be rich like Japan. And my professor, he's a good scholar. He would say, you should read this book. Because, of course, we understand that Thailand wants to be rich. It's exactly what Japan wants to do, 40 years ago. But now we have our common future. Basically, the earth, okay? I found that book very impressive, okay? Now, by 1992, we have the so-called the Earth Summit in Argentina. And the Earth Summit is one of the most important legal documents. It would be, the Rio Declarations. Okay? And they also have Agenda 21, which is very thick document, 800 pages. And they have two leading conventions at that time, the Biodiversity Conventions and the Climate Change, 1992. And then also another convention on straddling feedstock, lead to straddling feedstock later. One point that I would like to mention to our international guests is that because at that time, Thailand realized that sustainable development is important, Princess Julapon herself went to attend that meeting. Okay. Then after 1992, actually this one is my PhD dissertation because there was the big case. Remember when we talk about Bretton Woods institution, the gas was transformed into the WTO in 1995. It became international organization, one of the, the most powerful and respected WTO in terms of regulating international trade. In 1998, there was very, very big case called the shrimp and sea turtle. And the full name, it would be U.S. shrimp with this division of the appellate body in 1998. At that time, you can see that it is very important because the most important value of international economic institution under the Bretton Woods is economic efficiency. Only economic efficiency. But they do have exception as flexibility or policy space a little bit in Article 20. And Article 20, especially A and B, would be very difficult to use because of the condition of necessity. So Thailand cannot impose import ban on foreign cigarette because the gas thing, it was not necessary. The United States cannot impose import ban on tuna and tuna product because it was not necessary yet. But in the shrimp and sea turtle, United States, they avoid using Article 20B. They use Article 20G. That is, it is not necessary, but we want to preserve exhaustible national resource. You will see that in that case, the appellate body agree with the United States argument that, there is the need that the appellate body need to interpret the WTO in a revolutionary way because sustainability is another value in the world trading community. That is why in this case, the appellate body decided that United States is eligible or have legitimate way to protect sea turtles swimming in the Gulf of Thailand, in India too, because India was also our joint claimant, in Malaysian territorial sea, and in Pakistan territorial sea. Those sea turtles are swimming in territorial sea of India. But how can you protect that? United appellate body said, well, because we have to interpret the appellate body article in revolutionary way. My point is the value of sustainability is also bring into the picture of international economic communities, especially trade. So the value of economic efficiency and value is now equal to each other. It's not exception. I would say it's almost the same now. Okay? Then my next point, it would be Thailand development. Thailand was poor agriculture economy. Poor means that, the GDP per capita in 1961 was only $100 per person, which was very poor. And in order to become basically materially richer, what can we do? It would be the conventional after World War II that industrialization was the way. So we start industrialization. It starts with import substitute. We produce, textile garment, electric fan, slipper. And then by 1991, we switched it into export push, learning from Japan and South Korea. And then also move up the industrial ladder into capital incentive. So we engaged in petrochemical industry too in 1981 in the seaboard. By 1981, Thailand was classified as lower middle income country by the World Bank. And then by the year 2010, Thailand was classified by the World Bank as upper middle income countries. As I mentioned, $6,000 per person per year. That is impressive number. We should be happy with that. But anyway, you will see that now things change. Thailand actually honored the so-called Development Agenda 2030. We really honor that. And we realize that climate change is real. And we realize that the international political economy changed. And how would we move from that? I trying to go very fast. Because as Professor Nippon mentioned this morning, the Thai government wants to control the so-called populist policy. That's why the Constitution, Section 65, dictates that we have to have strategic plan for the next 20 years. It was dictated here in the Constitution. And then the government now, they draft the so-called 20 years plan, strategic plan. It would be this book, okay? So that it would be difficult for, let's say, the future democratic government came into power. They can use their money for the Paddy pledging scheme like that. They cannot do that because it would be difficult to do that. That's the best they can do, okay? Now, okay, now, in order to move into that, this plan just only the good starting point because currently the government, they set up the so-called the strategic formulating one. So those 6 committees, they are formulating the strategic plan. So one thing is interesting as Professor Nippon, who's economist, he would sit in the lawyers elite committee. I was only lawyer in the competitive committee. I'm very happy about that. And I feel I'm very happy. That is my place. So economists, they talk about GDP, productivity. I'm very happy with that because it's not only law. And you will see those committees are trying to get Thailand into the future. And you will see one of the committee that I would like to mention and emphasize to our Indian guests that we do not forget about moderation and sustainability and about the King's philosophy of sufficient economy. Because one of the committee that the public pay a lot of attention is the 6th committee. Basically, it is about, it is the 4th committee. They call it the Strategic Formulating Committee on Economic Growth with Environmental Friendly Lifestyle. Basically, it's sustainable. Now, let me have, the concrete, what do they want to do? They want to increase the forest area in Thailand to 40%. The second thing is they want to reduce the waste that people, dump into the sea to 50%. And they want, how's about the climate change? Thailand is committed to reduce at least 20% of the greenhouse gas. That is the aim. And then for water, they want to manage the water in a better way. And they also talk about sustainable energy also, okay? They try to replace the so-called the fossil energy with clean energy up to 20% of the total energy use, okay? That is their goal in 20 years. And to develop environmental friendly land use, okay? And then the last one for lawyer, this one I think very important. I'm very happy they mentioned about environmental injustice. That is very important. I remember, 20 years ago when I was visiting a scholar at Harvard Law School. I sit in, because I scholar, I was not student. I sit in the environmental class, was taught by a black professor. You know, in United States, even though they're very advanced, the EPA regulations always put the burden on the disadvantaged or minority group. Okay? Basically, when we talk about environmental issue, we will have the so-called the NIMBY politic. You know, environmental protection is good, but how about the waste? So it's not in my backyard. But normally, if you are elite, white, you would, you know, put the waste in the backyard of the black people or the minority people. And that issue is coming to Thailand, and we are aware of that. And I think that's a very good starting point, especially for lawyers. I'm going to end my talk now.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much for addressing very interesting issues. Professor Sakda has also mentioned that we are facing with the aging society, what the problems that we are going to have in the future. He also just traced a little bit back to the WTO appellate body jurisprudence that for the first time the WTO appellate body apply sustainable development principle, just strike a balance between development and environmental protection. He also noted that we want to move ahead, but we should not, sustainability should not be forgotten. So I will open up for the questions. For just a couple of questions, do you have? Probably, maybe. Also, right? No? Okay. So we move to the next speaker, Ms. Chanya. Okay. So you have the floor.
Yep. Okay. Hello. Hi. Hello. Can you hear? Okay. Good. Hi. Good morning, everyone, distinguished speakers and guests. It's really my honor to be sharing my current work with you all, and I welcome all the questions and comments and recommendations later on, so feel free to do so. And thank you very much for exceptional introductions, which is really, I'm honored for that. Okay, so let's shift gear a little bit from these macro levels into something a little bit smaller. So my study is really relating to very highly marginalized group of people in Thailand, namely the person with disabilities. So let me start with the motivations that I start doing this line of research. Back in law school, so if you are trained as a lawyer like me, you would realize that a lot of classes in law school deals with how do you, as a lawyer, use law, right? How do you interpret? How do you say this is right, this is wrong according to the law? But then, because my background is really not entirely law, so my background is in statistics as well and econ. So in econ or stats, as a lot of the speakers before us talked about, they're concerned with the normative values or the effectiveness of the policy that the government or economists do. So the same thing applies, right? So when I go to law school, I have that question as well. What is the effectiveness or the normative values of the law that would imply? And at most, those kind of topics would be touched upon at the very end of the class or at the very end of the course, right? At most like 1 or 2 minutes lectures about it. So that's always been my lingering questions. And when I work as academia, that become one of the motivations of my research. So specifically this research, I am looking at how the law can be effective in not only directly regulating human behaviors, but also how it is indirectly influencing or changing people's attitudes, right? So that is something that is deeper level than just directly prohibiting or mandating people to do something. So that's what I'm concerned about. And it have two deals by nature, deals with different topics like psychologies or something that is very popular right now, which is the behavioral economic idea. So let's touch upon those a little bit. So let me give a background of the problems here. The Person with Disability Act in Thailand is my case study to trying to implement this line of research. The problem is there is currently around 1.3 million persons with disabilities in Thailand, right? This is as of 2013. And according to the Article 33 of the Person with Disability Act, every employers who hires more than 100 employees have to employ full-time person with disabilities. That is by law, required by law. So the ratio is 1 to 100, okay? So by that, that implies that by Article 33, there should be around 68,000 persons with disability to be employed full-time. Okay? But several studies that I have observed, they have shown more or less consistent numbers that there's only around less than half of those who are employed currently. And instead of being fully employed, a lot of employers choose to go with Article 34, which is to pay the amount of lower the working wage, the lowest working wage, legal wage, to the government instead. Okay, so the reason is because they are hesitated to hire persons with disabilities. They believe that the cost could be uncontrollable, meaning there is indirect cost of implementing friendly environment for a person with disabilities, and implicitly they they believe that a person with disability are not as capable as the person with no disabilities. So that is the main reasons based on the literature reviews that I have. So that is the issues, right? The framework that I'm looking at is really in the U.S. The reasons there is a law called Affirmative Actions Plan, right? So the underlying reasons for affirmative action is really to increase diversities in schools or in working environment. Okay, so what these affirmative action do, not only for the benefits of the vulnerable groups, but also it's aimed, one of the reasons is aimed for changing the attitudes of employers or even the peers, the colleagues of vulnerable group people, so that they can see that actually, for example, racial minorities are as capable, or persons with disabilities are as capable as other people to work, right? So that is one of the objectives of the law, okay? So that is why the law is there, is to change the attitudes at the end. But my question, really, for this research is really whether or not Article 33 helped changing those attitudes of fellow employers, fellow employees, colleagues of persons with disabilities, right? So that's the whole thing. That's why I started this. Okay. I already talked about anti-discrimination law, but one thing that I forgot to mention is, in the past, the direct prohibitions of discriminatory action, like, hiring people based on race, things like that. It's explicit, right? So right now, those kind of actions are minimized. Not saying that it's gone, but it's minimized because it's obvious. And it's obviously against the law. But there are things that they called implicit bias, where people are unconsciously believing in, for example, stereotype, that these people are not as capable as the other people. A lot of people in minority group facing that, racial, LGBT, person with disabilities, they're all facing this. So that's why the aim of anti-discrimination law nowadays is not only to prohibit those obvious direct actions, but also something that's very implicit, very hidden behind the agenda. So the studies that I base most of my research on is by Jules and Sunsteins, which is a very close colleague to the new Nobel laureates, the Richard Taylors, right? So they're looking at how the modern law, legal should be designed to reduce the likelihood of implicit bias that could damaging the outcome for the people that is in protected traits, like vulnerable groups. Okay. So the psychological explanation of these bias is that sometimes people not consciously or intentionally think about that, but it's something that's hidden behind, or something that we call heuristic, right? So heuristic bias is like, it's a mental rule of thumb or shortcut. Like, for example, I would say, if I'm trying to convince someone, I should have 3 reasons to convince them, right? So that is the rule of thumb. It's convenient for you to make a decisions, but sometimes those kind of shortcuts can lead to something we call systematic errors. And stereotypes is one of them. So you believe that people from certain race are less capable of this race because of your past direct experience with them. What is not necessarily true because it's proven that it's not true. But you use that shortcut or the stereotypical decisions making, the implicit decisions on hiring people. So yes, people making decisions based on this. So how does indirect debiasing work? It works this way. So when affirmative action is in place, right, they kind of encourage employers, or, well, it's indirect, so it's incentivize employers to employ person from vulnerable groups, and that increase the diversities of workforce or student bodies. That increasing would reduce bias by the fact that they are really not less capable. So people would see by that direct experience that actually they are as capable as other people to work. So the ultimate goals then would be that once they worked in a sustainable manner with people from vulnerable group, they would become changing their attitudes or behaviors towards this person with disabilities. So that is the underlying idea. So what I do is I'm trying to measure that, right? It's not just the output, but I'm trying to measure the outcome, which is the ultimate attitudes toward person with disabilities. So the framework that I use, the tools that I use to measure the impact is using the social impact assessment framework. Okay, so for example, in nonprofits or in social enterprises, they have to measure social impact, right? So they use this framework to measure the social impact, but in Thailand, I hardly see any case study that they use this for law. So this is actually my first adventures of how do you using things from different disciplines to measure the impact of the law. So the framework goes like this. So you have input, activities, output, and outcome. And what I do is, input is actually Article 33. Activities is when the employers employ a person with disabilities. The output, which is immediate things that come out of the law, is that person with disabilities are provided with more jobs and are able to working in normal working environment. And then the ultimate, which is the goal of the objective of the law, is the outcome. That is to reduce the bias towards person with disabilities. So, data collections, I choose, okay, this is one of the hardest things, right? Data collection. And I would like to inform first that this is in progress, meaning I'm still collecting the data. So the sampling is one place of employment. There have around 4,000 employees. And there are certain departments that hire person with disabilities and certain department that doesn't hire person with disabilities. So I collect from those two groups. And out of 14 questions, there are two kinds of questions. One is attitudes towards person with disabilities. And then the second one is attitude towards hiring person with disabilities. In the second group of questions, it has elements of comparisons. So comparing with their own capacities, that is. The reasons why I choose these two is because I want to reduce the social desirability bias. Meaning, if you ask only the no comparison questions, they would tend to answer in a better way than they think. But if it's compared to themselves, it would be easier to extract the more realistic response. So yes, so the two type questionnaires, for example, I was just asked, do you think the person with disabilities are not burdened for their work? But for the hirings, I would choose the comparison element, which is, for example, if possible, would you choose working with people with no disabilities over a person with disabilities? Or do you think that you're more efficient than person with disabilities in a working environment? So with that, so far I have 51 samplings, but I'm aiming to collect 400, so just cross fingers. And for the sake of these studies, I just run the preliminary results. So the result is this. We don't see any statistically significant difference between attitudes for both set of questions, meaning the department that has person with disability and department that doesn't have person with disabilities show no difference in the attitudes. And the thing that I would like to stress is this the second line of questions, meaning the line of questions that have a comparisons elements. They have no significant higher than taste values. The taste value is at middle, meaning from scale of 1 to 5, right? Where do you compare yourself with person with disabilities? This implication is showing that there's still a lot of bias towards the capabilities of person with disabilities for both group of employees who have worked with person with disability and who have not. So my preliminary legal implication would be that it's not only about the numbers, right? It's not only about the law that requiring or incentivizing the employers to employ a person with disability, but this is also about the qualities of how you employ them, right? Not isolating. They have to be given equal opportunity for the job that they are truly capable of. So in this sense, my question, the next question then, how would the law be designed to encourage more of those highly qualities kind of work for a person with disabilities? So that's my talk.
Okay, thanks very much, Ms. Chanya. It's a very interesting approach that we are not familiar with because we are lawyers. We're dealing with legal interpretation, legal application. So it's quite interesting and very new approach to legal research. So this is a real interdisciplinary research. So if anybody has any, yeah, okay.
My name is Rajat Banerjee. I'm coming all the way from Calcutta, India. And Actually, eventually, I work in a policy center, and we had the opportunity to work on this sector for some time, disability sector. I have one fundamental question. You had some observations saying that it is because of the bias of the employers, the implicit bias or the heuristic bias, however put it like. Don't you think that going beyond that, it is actually the basic norm, the fundamental norm of the society, whether you call it the constitution or the will of the people, that actually is the place wherein the fault lies. The American Constitution, for example, through its 14th Amendment, identifies the Equal Protection Clause. Similarly, in the Indian Constitution, we have Article 14, the Equality Before Law Clause, or the Equal Protection Law Clause, actually, which favors the, or which accommodates, which creates a space, an operative space for the disabled, actually a norm which is in operation. I would not say that India has done wonders, but it has come out with a new act in 2016, very recently. My fundamental point at issue is like going beyond the biases of the individual employers who are employing or not willing to employ those people because they may think that their capabilities differ. Is it not the norm of the society, the norm which guides the mindset of the people, the fundamental norm, whether you call it the constitution or otherwise, that is actually leading to the mess or the problem, your research problem? But my hats off to your research work. It's a very good work, and we actually worked on similar topics, though we didn't have the opportunity to extend the topic further. But it's brilliant work, and thank you. And your observations on this, please.
Thank you very much. I agree with you. It's a different perspective, I guess. So the micro. So what I'm taking on is the micro perspective, meaning I just basically ignored how the institutionals or the way that the law was framed or draft influence, or how the society norms influence the law as it is. But I guess that's the work of academia, that we're trying to expose in a different perspective and trying to drive for the real change for the law that would be more effective both way, I guess. That's for me. So but for me, it's personally, I think it's harder for the fundamental institutional for us to influence a change. But, yeah, I hope that.
Okay, we pick up one more question for this round.
Thank you. But you raised questions on disabilities, persons, which I could understand from your presentation. We have in Indian Constitution, Article 15, Subclause 3, which talks more empowering women, not only on equality basis, but special privileges to the women and children. My question is just out of curiosity. Is your research working on women and children with disabilities, number one? Number two is that India has got a quota system in employment, persons with disabilities, persons with blindness. So if it is 50% for the general quota, 25% for the backward persons, for the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and also persons with disabilities, does your government, it's just curiosity, just your government has that quota system for persons with disabilities?
No, we don't have. Well, it's not a direct quota, so we have quotas, like 1 per 100, but the employers has the choice of just paying out of that requirement.
No,
so they can just pay for the fund.
Because even in academic institutions, when we are sending our applications for full professorship or for any faculty positions, there are quota systems in India. So, Indian government has taken that way care with persons with, who are blind, and persons also with disabilities.
So maybe quota system might be another legal recommendation here.
But it can be a solution to empower persons
Right.
of disabilities and to bring them in the mainstream.
Right. It's a different legal approach, I guess, because for this, Thailand approach is more indirect debiasing, but what would you say the quota system would be a more direct debiasing law? So it's
So seats, if there are
Could be
4 faculty positions in university, and 2 for general, 1 for the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, who come from the more backward, economically backward. The reason is to bring them into the mainstream, and 1 seat has to be with the person with disability. That's how the Indian policy is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Otherwise, it's okay.
Okay, thanks very much. So we need to stop here for the Q&A session. So let's move on to our last speaker, Dr. Ri Len Liang. So you have the floor. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Distinguished guests, it's my honor to be sharing my understanding about the China development strategy. I think it's very hot words now. Both Chinese people and Thai people are talking about one Belt One Road and Thailand 4.0 and 20-year strategy for Thailand. So I think it's very useful to share my understanding, to learn from each other. So my topic is about China's next steps for reform towards sustainability. So my keyword, I think, is 1 is reform. Second is steps. Third, stability. So I think it's a keyword. So my topics will cover 3 points. 1, just introduction. And second, review China's development path in the past. And the third one, we just forecast or to see the next steps of reform of Chinese government. So I think China is a very big country in terms of geography, population, and a very strong country in terms of economic and politics. Not powerful country. I think it's a very strong country, not a powerful country. So I think every people can understand it. And as we know, China reform and opening up in 1971. In the past 30 years, the GDP average annual growth rate is in 2 digits. And make China to be the second biggest economy in 2011. And after that, from 2013 to 16 and to 17, GDP average growth rate about some 6.5 or 7. And that's we call the new normal. But I think is still very high than most of the country and the developing country. So this, I think, every people can understand. This is an achievement that the Chinese government made in the last 30 or 40 years. But we still have lots of questions. China is a developing country, the same as Thailand. We're facing the challenge, sustainability. As we know, China is most countries in using the fertilizer or fertilizer using country. And we have the problem health, weather, polluted water, and polluted air. And just as Associate Professor Nippon remain indicator of inequality, that China may be the most or highest country in the world. So I can see this is also the indicator about the inequality of China from the 2000 to 2011. So it's, I think it's very, very high inequality. And China's Gini coefficient is so high also for just 0.47 or 49. I think is very high in the world. So this is a question in the last year, in the last 30 or 40 years in the past. So I think the second keyword is that the steps. So we have the Chairman Mao's 2 steps, and Deng Xiaoping's 3 steps, and Jiang Zemin's new 3 steps. So the Chairman Mao's 2 steps, I think, is that the first steps was to establish a new democratic republic in 1949. And the second step was to continue to socialist revolution based on the first step, so China could gradually transit into a socialist society. These are 2 steps of strategy of Chairman Mao. And for Deng Xiaoping's 3 steps, Deng Xiaoping wants to make China the well-off country, to make the people rich. So he said, no matter white cat or black cat, which one can catch mice is a good cat. So he made the 3 steps. That means a double GDP from $250 GDP per capita in 1980. And the second step is to redouble GDP per capita by the end of the 20th century. This is the second steps. And the third steps, by the year about some 2030 or 2050, GDP per capita will be reached some $4,000. This is the third steps. But the Jiang Zemin's new third steps, just based on the Deng Xiaoping third steps, he thinks by the year 2030 and 2050, GDP per capita, some 4,000 is too low, so adjust the steps. He wants to double the GDP just by the year of 2010, something like that. The GDP per capita will reach some 4,000. So as we know now, GDP per capita in this year, maybe last year or this year, will be some 6,500, just like the GDP per capita of Thailand. So this is a new 3 steps reform of Jiang Zemin. So this is the past 30 or 40 years. But how we can go on towards sustainability, this is a big challenge for China. So our leader, maybe the 5th generation, just after becoming the general secret, Xi Jinping announced to the world that Chinese dream. I think this is a keyword, very important keyword. What's the meaning of the Chinese dream? The great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. That means the improvement of people's livelihood, prosperity, construction of a better society, and strengthen military. This is the meaning of Chinese dream. So how can we go or reach the goal of Chinese dream, make the Chinese dream to be the truth? So Xi Jinping announced the 2 steps also. One step, first step, from 2020 to 2035, he say we will work hard for 15 years to see that socialist modernization is basically realized. And the second step from 2035 to some 2050, working for another 15 years to develop China into a great modern socialist country. This is another 2 steps. Now we are on the way, on the 2 steps toward the sustainability. But how we can make sure we can reach the goal of sustainability? Use the word maybe 5 in 1 or 5 spheres. That is economic construction, political construction, cultural construction, social construction, and ecological construction. This is, I think, the conceptual definition about sustainability of China. So maybe 5 in 1. But how can we make sure that we can go to the sustainability? I think maybe some 4 factors. Then just one, building aware of society in all around the way, deepening reform in all around the way. I think in the past 30 or 40 years, what we achieve must be contribute to the reform and the opening up policy. So we have to deepen the reform and just say we will open to the country. The door opening will never closed. And the 4th factor is that administrative the country, according to the law or rule of law, mentioned many times in his report to the 19th People's Congress, National Congress of Communist Party, and administering the party in an all-round way. For example, anti-corruption as well, just administering the party. I think these 4 factors can make sure that China will reach the sustainability. So this is I make a conclusion. In the recent years, especially 19th National Congress of the Communist Party, China has determined overall plan and roadmap. And all this overall plan or roadmap requires China to deepening reform and make a basic direction to the roadmap or sustainability. But I think Chinese people, I just say, is a very strong country in political. I think maybe have 3 or 4 factors. One is very continuous policy. From the top leader, 1st generation to the 5th generation, we have the 2 steps, 3 steps, and the new 3 steps and the 2 steps. So it's very consequently or continuously. I think it's very important. And the second one, strong government. Yes, I think maybe top leader maybe can administrative country for 10 years. For 10 years, yes, each top leader. I think this is a second very important factor. And the third one is that leader is transformational leadership. Yes, from the 1st generation to the 5th, I think this is my conclusion. Yes, thank you very much. Yes.
Okay, thanks very much for addressing very interesting topic. He mentioned about Mao's 2 steps, Deng Xiaoping 3 steps, right? And Jiang Zemin and Xi Jinping's announcement. He also gave 4 factors that sustainability can be achieved. So if anyone has a question for Dr. Lee. So if there are no questions, I'll give you 5 minutes to conclude, or maybe you can add something. So let's begin with Professor Sakda. Right now, no, yeah, okay.
Sure. Okay, so I think this talk is about interdisciplinary law. So in this new age, this is something that we need in order to move forward, not just for sustainability, but for justice in general. To achieve justice is not just, confined with one disciplinary. So there's a need for even more collaborations within, between different interdisciplines so that we can break through and find things that is more innovative than the past. Yeah, because we're facing a lot more challenge, so I hope that helps.
No more? If anyone has any question, yes, please. So you can raise your hand if you had more point to raise.
Thank you so much. My name is Imran. I'm a PhD student in AIT, and I'm from Pakistan. It's more of a kind of a compliment than a question to Dr. Tanya. I really appreciate the kind of work that she have done, this use of heuristics, especially, and tracing down the implicit bias for the disabled persons. I just have a small question that when you are looking at heuristics, which are actually, you assume that these are intuitive judgments, according to the theory that you mentioned, Richard Thaler or John Kenyon. What I feel when we are being a law professional, we are looking at overly towards law. But because these heuristics are deep into our perceptions, and law is already there, as you mentioned, the Article 33 is there, Article 34 is there. What is needed for me, I'm also studying this, but maybe I'm a climate change student, so I'm working it differently. But it's more about campaign, about realization to the community and the people in the industries. More they realize, when I say perception, I look at someone and I get some feeling. And when I look at some disabled person, the feeling should be good. The feeling should be of proud, of gratitude. So apart from the law, there is need for looking at this angle where I see if that is part of your study or it can be. Thank you so much.
Yes, I agree with you completely that there's some other aspects that have to come in parallel with the law. And this is actually one of the, mild criticism of this behavioral economic employment in the law, because it's a choice architect. So basically you're trying to manipulate how people make choices by imposing the law. So that's a fine line between manipulations and goodwill. So that is a whole different topic that we need to find a balance, between manipulating people and, encouraging goodwill by law. So I agree.
Ni hao and swadikap. This is a unique opportunity to ask a question to China and Thailand. So I will draw from what Professor Sakda mentioned about traditional value and contemporary value. And Dr. Lee listed 5 new constructions, cultural, economic, political, and others. I am reminded also, Dr. Lee mentioned a huge sustainability challenge. Means I stayed in Beijing for 1 year, so I've also experienced the issue of food safety and haze. Now, how can, because the food safety haze is not a national issue, it's a regional issue. The challenges of climate, air quality, water quality, these are not restricted by the sovereign boundaries of a country. So that calls for inclusiveness, calls for cooperation. So what do the two countries we should look forward? I cannot represent India, but I'm interested to know this.
Yes, thank you very much. I think now China is playing very important role in the international stage. And under the strategy of China, I think have many projects. For example, recently, we get a very big money from the AIIB to change the heater system. Before that, we have lots of resource, for example, fossil oil or the fossil coal, to make the heater in the northern part of China. But we get a big money from the AIIB. We have changed the big system. We just use the gas for the heater in the winter season. This is one project. And another project, as we know, the Beijing is very big capital, have some 20 million people in Beijing. Now we have the project to make the second capital of China. Maybe not the second capital, but the very huge big cities. We call the Xiong'an, just some northern part of Beijing. So we will move a lot of factory from Beijing area to outside Beijing. I think this is a project for China to make the sustainability, to make our environment is much more cleaning. And I just say now China is playing very big, important role in the international stage. For example, in Paris or something like that, the China leader will attend the meeting and contribute to the world.
Good morning. I'm Beryl from NIDA Law School. I would like to ask Professor Sakda. I'm serious about the 20 years of nation plan. Will it really work to help solve aging problem? After listening to many talk about government politics, I'm not sure I can touch them.
Actually, you asked the tough one. I'm very happy that no one raised that. But now you raised that at the end. You know, I begin with the presumption that Thailand does not forget about sustainability. We have the 20-year national plan in there. But the big question is, how can we effectively implement the national plan? That is the big questions. I cannot ask you now, but the government, I think they have good intention to do that. But how good they can do? One of the good thing that Dr. Lee is here because he mentioned about strong state in China. One thing Thailand is different from China is that even though we have the plan, implementation is the problem. Okay? In China, it's different. You visit China, you will see that when you show your passport and the visa to the Chinese immigrant, they will go like this with the police stand in the back, right? If you say, I'm not going to show your visa, they're going to throw you out. But in Thailand, you know, the visitor, they sit, they relax, because they are not afraid. And you'll be surprised, you know, when they implement the plan, infrastructure, because it is the takeover, right? You take over people's land to build the infrastructure, the port, whatever. And if the landowner say, I'm not going to go because it's my land, the government will say, you are too selfish. You get the money and leave. And the protesters say, no, I'm not going to leave. They're going to sit there. The local government would use the police, take them out fiscally. That wouldn't happen in Thailand. Okay, my point, just you ask me in the last one, and I try not to say it, is we are waiting for how it's going to be implemented, how effective it's going to be implemented. That is my answer.
Thanks very much. I think we had a wonderful discussion, and could you please join me thanking our wonderful panelists here? Yeah. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay. So now may I invite Professor Nared again to present a small token of gratitude to our panelists, please. I know it's getting late and I guess you might be quite hungry. But before we go for lunch, we would like to invite you all here to have a group photo, please. Yeah? So also please note that lunch will be provided in a different building. Our staff and students will be waiting outside to take you there. After lunch, it will be paper presentations. We will be back here at this building, but on the 6th floor. Okay, on the 6th floor. There will be students with the label staff, so you could ask them, yeah? The session, I know this is getting late, the session will start probably roughly about 1:30 or 2 o'clock. I'm really sorry about this. So if you need any assistance, please let us know. We are happy to help and make sure you have a great time today. Right. Okay, so everyone, please, yeah, come forward to have a group photo, please. It's okay.